Hi everyone, and welcome to my next episode of Health and Wellbeing educational video. I'm super pleased to introduce you Rachel Ross Smith, who is a transformational coach working with women but also open to work with men. And today is the seventh episode, and we are going to be talking about positivity and motivation. So, how to stay positive, how to stay motivated, even if the world is filled with negativity and limited beliefs and everything else. So, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this.
Me too, me too. So, shall we dive straight into it? And would you like to share your life story, your life journey with us, and tell us any challenges you faced, any turning point you had in your life where you thought, I really have to do something about myself?
Yeah, for sure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to roll back to when I was just a child. I was born in Edinburgh in Scotland and moved up to the Shetland Islands when I was 6 years old. And sort of from the age of 6 to 12, I went through some experiences that definitely shaped my future and shaped my life as it is today. And due to some of them challenges, I can honestly say sort of from my early teens, mid-teens, and through my 20s, and just where my mindset was at that time, I had quite a colourful life. I was definitely somebody and have been, right up until I'd say sort of my late 20s, somebody that's really had to learn to live with things like depression and anxiety. And some of this was the mindset that I was stuck in, but there was absolutely some of my past that was, causing a sort of ripple effect and had created that kind of lifestyle and the way I was living. So what that meant for me was I was really kind of stuck in a sort of place of self-harm in terms of the things I was doing, like drinking, going out partying excessively, and just different things. Looking back as an adult, I was sort of stuck in this pattern.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
To jump in, it's because it's really interesting how you're sort of describing your journey and how you actually, because back then you didn't know what you know now. So
Yeah.
did you find it that it was partly sort of escapism from the real world and facing the reality of the truth, basically?
Yep, 100%. It was absolutely all about escapism. And I think that's where, I have a lot of compassion for people that are potentially stuck in harmful patterns of behavior and also addictions, because it is just that difficulty of actually coping with what reality is. And I was really stuck in this sort of reality and this experience and this sort of cycle. And I guess the best way to describe it is a cycle. And, life does go in cycles, but we can become trapped in cycles of behaviors. And, you may get forward somewhere, but then the sabotage patterns, the limiting beliefs kick in and it'll pull you back to where you were. So that was me, looking from the outside. So before I kind of had my breakthrough and went on to kind of do what I'm doing now, which I'll speak to you about in a second, I was definitely in that place, and from the outside you maybe would have looked in and said, oh, she's got a lot going for her. Although I had these things going on, I worked my way through high school, I went to college, I realized that traveling was something that was going to be very important for me. So I went away and did some traveling in my early 20s and started to kind of open my mind up a little bit that way into terms of what was out there in the wider world. And that was definitely, traveling for me was definitely a way for me to move away from these damaging patterns, although it wasn't until in my later life that I actually went in and more so even the last 2 years, I went in and really understood the core and what that was about. So I worked in mental health I went to college, went traveling, I got an apprenticeship and worked my way up in mental health for the local authority in the Shetland Islands. So I was living with some mental health things myself, but I was working in the field and was very good at that job, had a very successful career. And so from the outside, looking in, you could say I had a good income, I had a good circle of friends, and I had a lot going on around me. But what was happening was that I wasn't being true to myself. I hadn't really dealt with the things from my past properly. I had this overwhelming feeling that was growing inside of me that I wasn't really doing what I was meant to be doing. I wasn't really honoring what my purpose was in this world. I wasn't really reaching my potential. I was still, although from the outside appearing in a successful career, and it was something I loved, I wasn't, living my purpose and doing the things I wanted to do. And I was just still kind of holding myself in this place. And so my kind of, you were asking there about breakthroughs, and my kind of breakthrough happened at the end of 2015. Now, at that point, I had somebody in my life that acted as his behaviour acted as a catalyst for me to take a spiral once again. And I actually went through about a month of really being very unwell. I was put onto medication by my doctor, which I had a bad reaction with. And then I had to be signed off work in order for me to come off this medication.
Mm-hmm.
This was my, I thought I'd been hit at rock bottom, but this was my rock bottom. But
You mentioned,
yeah.
Sorry to jump in. I've got to sort of catch the little moment that you said where you actually realized, even back then, that you thought you overcame the past. So you knew along the way that the past was still sitting at the back of your mind, and it was still coded in your body because of the experience, because of the patterns and everything, routines, habits, and everything else, and the feelings it gave you. So how did you actually started working on getting over it and letting it go and getting past that? Because that, I feel, for many of us, as you said, it's addiction, it's self-harm, and anything else, it's just trying to not to do something about it when it's serious, and sometimes it's too late. So obviously you got to the point where you pushed yourself basically to get to that point. Then you had to start doing something about it. So how did you actually get over it? How did you really accept it, that it happened, it was you, and now you're going to start again?
Yeah, so I think it was in that point of real just, despair for a while. But just that kind of I remember the feeling over me when I'd been signed off of work, and I didn't even with, the things that were going on with my mental health right through my career and, my 20s and things, I always stayed consistent with work. It was always, I always enjoyed my work and going in, and it at points probably was again a bit of an escapism. So I kind of, I guess, channeled that escapism from damaging things like drugs and alcohol into actually the work and the career. But it was still that pattern. I was still using something to escape because I would make myself so focused and busy, it kind of drowned out actually what was going on in the background. And the thing here.
So it's actually keeping your mind occupied constantly on focusing on something else rather than you, and finding the right balance where you can actually keep in silence with your mind and body and in peace, instead of really rushing through life, keep working, keep running away from actually the problem that was there. Yeah, is that right?
Absolutely. But then in that moment, so in that period of time where I'd been signed off for work and I was just needing to actually focus on me and get better, the doctor literally had to say to me, you need to take some time out. You have to, you need to stop. And my family were you need to stop, Rachel. And for the first time in my life, I took the advice and I did stop. And within that couple of weeks, I kind of was in this place where it was well, what am I going to do? I need to, but I made the decision at that point, well, I've been given this time for a reason. This is where I need to go in and start understanding what's going on. And yes, I was coming off the medication and was going through that sort of physical thing with coming obviously off the drugs I'd been given.
Mm-hmm.
But in that place, I actually did a thing. I'd been speaking to somebody, a professional, for a number of, I think it was weeks at that point. And I made the decision to be open about me and to stop trying to act like everything was fine and to actually just be vulnerable and raw and exposed and go to the people that I needed to speak to in order to tell them all these things I'd been keeping hidden and all these things I'd been keeping locked up and closed. Because we can pretend things are okay and keep everything to us, but there will be a point where we break and we need to just be open, and it happens. I believe that everybody has that point, and for me, it took somebody external to be my catalyst, and I have nothing but gratitude to them because of what's opened up since then, which we'll obviously go speaking about, and I have nothing but gratitude and love for them, although it was difficult at the time. So I was forced in that moment to actually look within.
Yeah, and do something about it. And you also said, because that's a very good point, at that point where you started really, where you were giving a suggestion from a doctor, which is someone else who you seek help from, and you were giving time and space to think for yourself and look sort of inside what's going on. Do you have faith at that time?
I think I've, compared to now, not so much, but I think what I had was my intuition, and I think I had my feelings, and I didn't have faith, to the extent I have now, but I did know there was something there, and I trusted the feelings that I'd been having up to that point, and I just trusted. I just had this trust that I knew I'd been given this for a reason, and I didn't understand what that meant or what it was, but I just knew it. And I knew that I had to break the cycle, and I knew that I was being given this opportunity in order to do so. And that's what happened.
Yeah. So you listened to your inner self, really, because you felt that that was talking to you, and that time was the time to actually do something about it.
Yep.
Wow,
100%.
what a story. Because, I believe that your story actually matches many stories around us, because it's always easier I experienced escapism as well, I was drinking when I was young, enjoying partying, but is that really life, or are we just somebody else, somebody that feels better and can cope better? You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
Many people actually don't get out of that rat race, I would say, because it's just easier to stay there. And as I said, as you mentioned, the sort of routines and patterns we develop around these bad habits and routines to lead us actually towards drinking and drugs and everything else, it becomes, the longer it gets, harder it becomes to actually break them.
Yeah. 100%. And I think the time thing was a factor for me, because I was in my late 20s by this point, moving towards my 30s. And I did have, although age isn't a concern of me, and I'm enjoying my 30s more so than any of the other decades of experience so far. But what was there was this just realization of, my age. And I was working with people at the time with end of life care, elderly people, and so I just became aware of the fact that in this lifetime we do have a time limit, we do expire, we only have so long. And I fully believe that now, I fully believe that we have other opportunities to come back, and that's probably a discussion for a different day. But for this lifetime, like for this experience, like we do only have so long on this planet. And you're right, people do stay stuck, and it's something I'm so as we go on through the conversation, but it is something I'm so passionate about, is helping people become unstuck, because it can be so easy to become stuck, so easy. But we are given these opportunities, like I was at that point in time. We are given these opportunities, and I've got other examples if you want me to share a couple with you.
That's because we've got quite a lot to discuss, but I like what you said, actually, that we've got only this lifetime to live, and there is always next time. I believe in that, strongly believe in that how we live right now is how we're gonna continue next episode, but yes, I would love to have that discussion sort of some other time. But I want to tap into actually talking about what sort of motivated you to stay positive and keep going. What was your vision in the future that gave you that motivation? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think as an individual, even with the difficulties I'd been going through, I was always quite optimistic, and I guess taking opportunities that were presented to me. They more so were around traveling and trying and experiencing festivals as much as I could. But I think for me, kind of as I went through life, I realized that I had a real connection with people, and I realized that people were starting to look up to me, kind of noticing maybe how I was making changes in my life, like in my local community. And this was just little things I was doing, like maybe like going away and doing traveling, or just little different things that were kind of different from maybe the average person from the community I was living in. And so I started to notice people were kind of interested in what I was doing, and were kind of at times would be looking up to me and asking questions. And I just kind of started to notice, oh, I seem to be doing things a little bit different than a lot of people, and maybe there's something in this. And I think just this sort of, I guess it's like that fire, that burning fire, and I'm so aware of that now, but I just could feel this fire in me. And I didn't understand it, but I just kind of was like, well, maybe I need to kind of go with this. And as I started, becoming more aware of myself, and at that point that I spoke about the catalyst, and when I had that experience, from that point, there was a decision that was made there that I was going to take a year to really come to understand myself. I was going to be a bit more selfish. I was only going to make decisions from a place of, is this going to move me forwards? Is this going to benefit me? Am I going to grow from this? And so I think, sorry, you go.
Yeah. So sorry to jump in again. So along the way, you actually started sort of realizing that there was something happening, and that other people noticed that change within you. I strongly believe that when we start working on ourselves, it sort of shows around our energy from within, in our aura. And, yes, people will notice it because there will be something different about you. And would you say that your mindset has shifted a little bit?
Hugely. It's everything. I mean, it's completely different level. It's a different person. It's, I look back on myself even 3 years ago, and I have so much love and gratitude, but I am not that person anymore. And I had to make the decision when I decided to go on this path of, I am going to change my life. I'm going to create an impact. I am going to use my struggles and difficulties and learnings and wins and fails and everything. I'm going to use that to inspire and give people hope, and show people that it doesn't matter where you're coming from, what's happened to you, you can do what it is you want to do. When I made that decision, there's a path there, and it's not easy. And you have to get up every day and consciously work on yourself. And yes, there's been times where I'm like, it would be so much easier to go back to what it was before. It would be so much easier. But you just start down this path, and then you kind of get so far, and you're like, okay, there's no way back now. I'm just going to have to kind of keep going.
This is the thing. You've actually experienced and are experiencing what I am experiencing too. And that's why it's really nice to talk about it and share it with others. Because once you find that within yourself, there is something more to your life, to the experience you can actually have, it really motivates you to work on it and learn about it and stay positive and push yourself. It's like, going to the gym regularly. The benefits it's going to give you, how much energy you're going to have, how happier you're going to feel. So it's the same with sort of personal self-development, isn't it? When you kind of get on that journey and you feel, what else I can learn, how much more I can actually do and achieve, and what feelings I can experience that are gonna make me feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, who would want to go back?
Absolutely. And it's like a muscle. And I look at the mindset as a muscle, and you have to, as you're mentioning with the gym, you have to work it every day. You have to get up and train it and work it and grow. And you must, I think one of the sort of learnings I've had recently is never get to that place where you feel that you know enough or you know everything. Because I think when people do get there, that's when you're in trouble. You have to be getting up every day and looking at yourself as, you know, you're in a period of growth, but you're a new student in every single day, and you have to be willing to get up and work it. And yes, there's been times the last couple of years where I've not done, you know, the things that I do in terms of my rituals, my routines, and them days don't usually work out as well as maybe the days that I have given my time to focus on.
Yeah.
But likewise, you know, it's okay to have some days where you don't really push yourself and you just be, and you are, and you appreciate what's going on. So
Absolutely.
but yeah, it's, I
Ups
guess,
and downs, aren't they?
yes.
There will always be ups and downs. And
Yeah.
you know what? It actually leads me to another topic that I wanted to talk to you about, because there's so much negativity around us that it's really hard to actually step out from the crowd that stays there, you know, and feeds and lives from negativity and talks about all the drama and, you know, everything bad that is happening around the world. And I'm not denying that it isn't happening, it is, and there are people that are making a difference. You know, it's important to really not allow it to take over our minds, and then depending on what our brain tells us, that's what the body does. So, you know, if we decide to be negative, we are going to be negative. If we decide to have negative and sort of conversations, you know, but there is the opposite of it. You can actually choose to watch something that's positive and grow from that, and have these positive sort of discussions with others that feed you as well. So what are your thoughts about the negativity around us?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I so there's probably a couple of points here. I believe we are all in the same world. We all have 24 hours in the day, and you know, it's up to us as individuals how we want to look at the experiences we have in each day. It's up to us as individuals to decide how we want to react to different situations. And this is one thing that's really I've had to work on massively, is how you react. You know, we can't help and change the things that happen to us. We can't help and change the experiences we have, and you know, we've all been through difficulties, traumatic events, loss. We can't control them, but what we can control is how we react to them. We can control how we move forward from them. And for me, that's something I'm so passionate about, and it's difficult and it's challenging and it's hard, especially when you're living in a world where it's so easy to, you know, get sucked into complaining and moaning. But one of my biggest shifts has me being able to get to that point where I can see, you know, in every difficulty, in every challenge, in every mess, there's a message, and there's something you can take from it. And it's freaking hard because we're conditioned and we're trained a different way. For example, you know, I've been through quite a difficult breakup recently, and the behaviors I've experienced from the other person, they were not okay. You know, there's things there that were really difficult, but what I've been able to do with the mindset I have now is actually look on it with love and compassion and take so many lessons from it. And I feel more than ever the fire burning inside of me, and I know what I can create from this space. And as much as there's been difficulties there, you know, I know what's unfolding for me in my life right now. That's been part of my fire. That's been part of my catalyst. And the other thing I just wanted to mention there, so yeah, I guess it's just about, you know, we can't control what happens at all times, in terms of like sudden events, other people's reactions, other people's words. We can't control that lies with them, but what we can control is how we allow it to affect us and how we respond to it. And that really lies with us. And it's to get your head around that takes practice. I'm still having to practice it, massively. But do you know what? When you learn to take that responsibility, in a sense, it's actually really empowering, because you're like, well, if I can take responsibility for this and take full responsibility of my life, I have so much power. Like, I have so much power in what I can create in this world, in my life going forwards. And the other thing I just wanted to mention quickly was, I think when you go into this space of personal development, you know, growing yourself as an individual and changing your mindset, it can be so easy to look at negativity. I almost got to this point where I was so positive, any negativity I would kind of run away from.
Yeah.
But actually, now day to day, let me just so it's clear, you know, I wake up and I practice gratitude, and I practice appreciation, and I live in a positive state of mind the majority of the time. But I was also putting a lot of resistance on negativity at one point, when the reality of it is that challenging situations do come up and are presented to us. Yeah. And as long as we're, you know, being aware of how we're reacting to them, it's part of life, and it's not to be scared of. And quite often they're actually to be looked on as growth opportunities. So it's just about being aware of that, because it can be so easy to feel like you have to run away from any negativity, but it's just part of life, and it's just being aware of how you let it influence you.
Yes, I totally agree. And everything you said sounds amazing, because there is so much knowledge and understanding. And I believe that in understanding, that gives you power to actually be in control of your actions and reactions. So yes, as you said, you know, when you were going through that breakup, people will come along to teach us lessons. And whether they're supposed to be there for a short period of time or a longer one, we all learn from it as much as the other person we are. So, you know, it's important not to really fight against it, trying to change the other person. Okay? Because if it's not their nature to work on themselves, they most likely will not. But what we can do, we can work on ourselves. And I think that once people really understand that, gosh, it opens up many doors, many choices, many opportunities, many just everything, you know. So it's really nice to actually hear it from you, because you've gone through a lot, and you are on everybody is actually on a self-development journey, I believe, you know, whether we want to admit it or not, because we all have different actions and reactions. And sometimes, as you said, you know, you just kind of look at the other person and you could see that they were struggling, but you went, you know what, I can't hate them, because it's not meant to be, or they're not ready, or it's not going to work. And you know, this is the truth that we need to really accept, that if it is that way, then it's better and easier and healthier for everybody to actually let go. As hard as it is to let go of someone, let's say sudden occasion happens, you know, somebody passes away, or two people sort of separate and stuff like that, you know, anything. It is sometimes healthier for both sides to actually let go. And if there is no communication happening, especially, then that just goes nowhere, because communication is the key. So that is really nice to actually hear. I've got the last question actually for you. How shall we cope? What would you say to the world, to every single person that is listening? How can they cope with the negativity, with conditioning, with you know, limited self-belief? What do you think?
So I think for there was a few things there that probably stood out. So the just carrying on the negativity, I think it's just being, I know this often for most of us comes from other people. So it's just being aware of the conversations you're having. And I think we've all got an inner ability to really judge, and not judge is the wrong word, decide how people are influencing us. And one trick that I learned that was really helpful to me is when I was in a same room or spending some time with somebody, I would just, you know, if I was kind of in a bit of a predicament in terms of like how they were influencing me, like how they were impacting me, I would just listen to within, and I would just take some moments and think about how I was feeling, where my energy was at. And if I was feeling uplifted and, you know, joyful, and like I was learning, and you know, these are people that you really want to have around you. But if I was repeatedly spending time with somebody repeatedly, now we all have our down moments, and it's important for us to be there for each other as human beings, as friends, as family, you know, in times of need, in times of worry, in times of concern. But we do all have people in our lives that repeatedly over a period of time, you know, with catastrophe and things that might be going on, make us feel drained and low. And that's when you have to be aware of who these people are, because if they are making you feel like that, you're not in your prime spot, you're not growing, you're not flourishing. So I think that was something I became really aware of, and that was difficult. And it meant that, you know, as I started to grow as an individual, I did have to make some decisions about people around me in terms of how much I let them into my life. Because as I grew my sense of worth, as I grew my love for myself, that actually became more important than feeling that I had to just honor, you know, somebody for whatever reason. So I think that's been a really it was a challenging lesson, but I think it's been really valuable. And actually having people, whether it's in your workplace or in a networking group or a social group, that are really, you know, uplifting and are where you want to be. So I make sure I have people in my life that are where I am going in terms of their business or their mindset or their knowledge or their spirituality or whatever. So I make sure I've got people in my life that I know are really going to uplift my energy and I'm going to learn from. And when I spend time with them, like, I know I'm really kind of vibrating high. So I definitely do that. In terms of limiting beliefs, this is something we all have to deal with. My belief for that, and this is obviously something that I do focus on and work with people through, is really taking time to understand what they are, because I can guarantee the thing that you think it is, it's the complete opposite. And it's crazy. And I also know through experience and believe that until we really deal with that and whatever it is we're looking to achieve, it is going to be difficult until we've really dealt with that belief, that limiting thing that keeps pulling us back, and really got to the core of it. I believe it's difficult to move past it, if at all.
It's kind of stopping us, isn't it, from moving forward? Because if we are, it's also not being true to yourself, that limited belief is there. We can be pushing whilst we are pushing away because something inside us isn't right. So that is absolutely. And as you said, as you talked about actually people that we surround ourselves with, because at the end of the day, it's our choice who we go and see, who we talk to, who we spend the most time with. And do you know what? It shapes us in the sense of we are becoming who we spend the most time with. So if we spend time with people that moan and complain, we're going to be one of them. If we spend more time with people that believe in themselves and they have drive and confidence and they want to achieve something in life and they work on themselves, we are going to become those people too. And that's why it's our choice, isn't it, to sort of decide, right, okay, who do I really want to be? Am I happy here? Am I going to spend more time with those or with those? And yeah, it is challenging, isn't it? Because sometimes it can be even family members that can be limiting our beliefs.
Yeah,
that we are good enough, we can actually achieve what we want to achieve, you know. So having that decision even to make, it can be really tough, can't it?
Absolutely, it is. And I, through a lot of work, came to understand that my at the core limiting belief was sense of worth. So that, and I know that's something that a lot of people have to work through and deal with. But even this most recent experience with the relationship breakdown, I know part of the growth that I've had out of that was really finding that sense of worth in myself. And do you know what? This weekend I got to this place. I actually went back to where I grew up. I haven't been back for 13 years. I went back to where I grew up this weekend with my mum. It was an amazing experience.
How did you feel?
it was like I was in an alternate universe, like I was in a dreamland when I first went there. I was like, is this really real? And of course, everything seemed a lot smaller because I'm bigger now. But in that place this weekend, more than ever, like I experienced, if everything fell down around me, which in a sense some of it has recently, I know what worth I have. I know what worth I give. I know what value I give. And I even more so this past weekend, my sense of worth grew again. So I just, it's hard, and it's being vulnerable, and it's being raw, and it's challenging. But I encourage you all to, get some support with it if you need it, and really come to understand them beliefs that you have, because when you really get to the core of them and you really come to understand them and you be open about it and just really go in deep and do what you have to do to get there, this whole energy just changes and the world changes around you. And this past 2 days, like even again, like from like a couple of weeks ago, my energy's on a different level. And I met one of my good friends, Lauren, today, who is one of my absolute go-to superwomen. And I had breakfast with her in Aberdeen before I drove down to Edinburgh. And she was just like, your energy is like in a different place. And I was like, I know, it's just, I feel like I've got this clear bubble around me. So take time out to understand what your limiting beliefs are, and give them the space and the love that you need to do that in order to move forwards. And having somebody there to guide you to do that, I believe is really helpful as well.
We all need help, don't we? And I have to say, I love when I get the feeling of sort of essential feeling around my body when people talk, and when it's meaningful, and when it means a lot. And what you actually said is you found yourself. So when you went there, you felt that you found yourself, you found your worth, and no one can take that away from you now, because you own it and you worked hard for it. So, we can decide to work hard either in the job, or we can decide to work hard on ourselves. But what is more beneficial, what makes you more happy, what makes you feel excited about each day, and this is the point, this is why we are talking about it, isn't it? So, okay, well, we are coming to an end. Rachel, it's been absolutely amazing. I loved your story. I loved everything you said. And I really hope that many people will benefit from it, and that they will start working on themselves, because I know what it feels like, and you know what it feels like. And so we are the proof that it is worth it. The journey is tough, filled with ups and downs, but yes, it is so worth it. So Rachel, what is your top tip for women when it comes to staying positive and motivated?
So I've got to say, just the morning routine, or having a routine at some point in the day. For me, it's morning, because I know I'm getting up and starting the day strong. So for me, morning routine, and what that looks like is meditation, practicing gratitude, affirmations if you like doing them. Meditation being the main thing, and moving your body, whether that's yoga or the gym or a walk or exercise. And just taking some time for self-care, and that I believe should be on a daily basis, even if it's 15 minutes to 30 minutes. Taking self-care. And I think it's very important for us women to actually give ourselves that space, just away from everything. Stay off your phone, just give yourself some time in nature, at the beach. And also to have empowering women around you. We do in society still live in a bit of a man's world. That is our reality currently. It is 100%, but I think, and even more so, I've really come to understand this. I have amazing men in my life in terms of my friends and family, but as a woman, having them powerful, empowering women, whether that's people through your gym, your family, groups, like if you don't have that, I encourage you to seek it out and surround yourself with that group.
Absolutely. And what's your top tip for men?
For men, again,
because sometimes it's harder to actually motivate men to be positive and to work on themselves. So yes, what would you say to the male?
Same in terms of like your routines. Have a routine. At some point in the day, I encourage people to do mornings, meditate. And yes, there'll probably be guys that watch that and think it's a feminine thing to do, but meditation has changed my life. I know a lot of men now who meditate, and I know how important it is to them. And I know, and successful men who are working very successful businesses, and I know how important to them and life changing it's been. So absolutely, please look into meditation. And I think my top tip for men has got to be okay with not being okay, and be okay with being vulnerable, and being okay with being open. I've grown up in the north of Scotland, and the sad thing is we have a very high suicide rate for men, and a lot of that comes to the feeling that men can't speak and be open, and with the pressures of society, and sort of this thing where you have to be okay all the time and holding your face, and it's
strong and being man enough. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's not man enough to be open about your feelings, and it's not man enough to talk about how you're feeling. So I want to say to you to be open, and there is so many amazing professionals out there. Likewise, people that are going to be in your family and your friends circle, please reach out to them if you feel like you need to speak about anything. Don't be ashamed of anything that's happened in your past. Don't be ashamed of anything you're going through right now. You're a strong, wonderful human being with so much to offer, and part of moving forward does mean being open and being a little bit vulnerable,
So, I mean, I like what you said, because especially with men, I believe that we are all human. It doesn't matter whether we are a man or a woman. We all have feelings. We can all get hurt. And it is hard to ask for help. We feel from within that we need help. So I would say find the person that really suits you to seek help.
Yep.
That will listen, that will understand, that will allow you to let it come out. So that was just beautifully said. And this just perfectly leads me to my last question, actually, because yes, we are all humans, and that is what I'm trying to really get out there. And so we have ups and downs. And Rachel, how do you deal with life challenges when they get you?
So for me, it's got to be meditation again. Take some time out to meditate. Journaling, so writing out how I'm feeling. Gratitude is massive for me. So actually, and again, it comes to writing it out and just being aware of things that are, I can be grateful for, because whatever crazy stuff's going on around you, there's always something that you can home in on and be grateful, and just focusing your mind, because I always see it kind of like when you get that negative thought in your mind and it sort of spirals, and before you know it, the world's falling down around you in your mind. So if you can just be aware and snap your attention to something like the sun shining, or your baby that's, your beautiful baby, or for me, my dog Frank, who you're probably hearing snorting at the side of me.
Anything positive.
Think just anything to change that thought process, because for us, we have to reinstall a thought. I think it's every 90 seconds to continue on that thought process. So if we can break that, and this was a good trick that I learned, if we can just break that state, and that's where practicing gratitude really comes in from a life-changing point of view, and it does. If we can just really be practicing that gratitude, it's just starting our day off in a different, rather than rolling out of bed and being annoyed about everything. We're actually getting up, and one thing I've started doing is saying thank you for something from the day before, or for my starting on that path. And for me, also laughter is the best cure. Put on a funny film, go and surround yourself with some people that make you laugh. And it does, it's a method itself. And probably nature. I've grown up in the country, so for me, the sea, being by the sea, and just being in nature definitely gives me just space and time to sort of think things through.
Nice. I'm going to tap into, actually, because you mentioned meditation a few times, and we sort of tap into that men sort of see it as a female thing. I think meditation is more about quieting the mind, keeping it in silence and under control, whilst really being in that present moment of a complete fullness and peace.
Yeah.
So that is definitely not only for women, because any human being can experience it. And once you get into that space, time and zone, nothing else matters. And this is a beautiful way to kind of just switch off and be and experience that moment. So I definitely encourage people men actually, to look into that. And yes, as you said, our mind keeps going. So it's up to us to actually decide what thoughts we want to be thinking, and how we spend our life, what we do, and how we really shape our thoughts and therefore emotions and everything else. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, like I mentioned at the start, you know, I've experienced sort of anxiety, depression and things like that. So mental states like that. So for me, where meditation really, like you're mentioning, came in at the start, was just it was just training my brain, basically training my mind to just learn to silence. And again, this is it's a skill. Like, you have to train yourself and you have to be consistent with it. So I've been practicing it for the last 2 years consistently, and I'm still, you know, bettering myself every day. So for me, initially it started off as training my brain and learning how to just be in the present moment, you know, silencing my thoughts, because my head used to go like a million miles an hour, just really slowing down my thought process. And that's when I started noticing it, making the changes. I really noticed my thought process slowing down. But going on from there, as I've improved my practice, I've made like big life decisions during my meditations, and really had some amazing experiences through it.
So that only came from the space of feeling calm and in peace and acceptance, right? Yeah, that is very, very true, because that's when we can get better focus, we can get better in making decisions, also being sort of more honest to ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Rachel, I want to say massive thank you. Thank you so much, because it's been amazing. I can see you've got a little friend there.
This is Frank.
And feeding from us too.
Yeah. He's like a healing dog. He's been through so much with me, and he's definitely one of my
I love you. What's his name? Her name?
His name's Frank.
Hey Frank, nice to meet you. Hey world, we are introducing our new member, Frank.
He's been amazing. He's just honestly been such a support. He has, and he makes me laugh like every day. So we've been together now for nearly 4 years, and he's just been through so much with me, and he just travels about with me, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can tell. I actually used to have a dog, so I know what that's like. Now we have a cat, so there's just some beautiful energy in animals that, you know, it feeds us human beings.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then they don't talk, so there are no opinions.
100%. They have got, cats and dogs have just being present absolutely down to the T. They don't, you know, there's nothing, they're just consistently present. And I think that's why we feel so calm around them, because they're just about the present moment. There's nothing else, and we kind of home in on that. So yeah, they're awesome.
Absolutely. Okay, Rachel, thank you so much once more for joining me. It was absolutely brilliant.
Thanks for having me. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I'm sure we will get another one going, because it was very interesting to talk about the topic that we mentioned.
Yeah, so definitely.
Let's arrange that. Okay, perfect. Thank you once more.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching. I really hope that you found it very useful and that it taught you something. It will help you to work on your health and well-being, because guess what? Unless you are healthy and well, then everything else will fall apart. So take care of yourselves, because that is the number one priority. Plus, if you are healthy and well, you can pass that on to others. You can help them without even knowing it and trying it. Okay, so thanks for watching, and join me next week, where I will be talking to the next guest, and we will be sharing more about improving health and well-being. Take care for now, everyone, and bye. Thank you, Rachel. Bye now.
Bye.